Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of Vindication Sports. My name is Jackson Hester, and I just want to run through uh, a real quick top 22, because there's 22 teams remaining in the NBA, personal power rankings. Yeah, when I made this, I didn't look at the records. I just looked at the teams that were in there, so didn't, pull up someone else's power rankings. So a lot of this is just, based off of all the games that we were able to see this year. I know we didn't get a full season, but I really think that the team's flaws and strong points are all pretty much known at this point. Most of the teams. I think there's still some question marks up in the air, but we really do have an idea of what the NBA looks like. So I'm just going to start at the bottom and then work my way up to the top. And I'll start with kind of my trash tier. The teams that I don't really think have too much of a chance to make any real noise in the playoffs or, even make it, because it will just be top 14 teams, obviously, that will cut to the postseason. But, it kind of already feels like the postseason. And for a lot of teams, my Atlanta Hawks included, the season is over. So at least we can look forward to the draft lottery. But I'm going to start off with, I think the worst team is Brooklyn Nets. They have a 30-34 record, which is not the worst record on this list, unfortunately, for the NBA, honestly. Well, maybe that's good, Wins are harder to come by because every team is pretty good in relativity to some of the horrible teams we've seen in the recent years. The Philadelphia 76ers, when they were, hyper tanking, come to mind, and the Hawks last year were just about as bad as they are this year. But, there aren't too many teams that are just free wins on your schedule. But the Nets, today it came out that Dinwiddie has got the sickness, we'll just call it. And DeAndre Jordan is also not going to play. And we already know that Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant won't be participating. So I just think that they pretty much have no weapons. The Karis LeVert show, it might be cute. He might drop 35 in a couple games. But I don't really think that Karis LeVert is going to be able to carry them over pretty much any team. The Wizards are going to be my 21st team. Today it was confirmed that John Wall is not going to play. That's really sad. Bradley Beal's pretty good. I would love to see John Wall. There's been some speculation that they might sign DeMarcus Cousins, which that's interesting, but I don't believe in. Or I not that I don't believe in it, because I like DeMarcus Cousins. I think he's got a great game, and if he gets healthy, he'll be a monster, because his game, in my opinion, isn't too focused on his physical output. It's kind of his skill, really. He's a really, really skilled big man. So I look forward to him coming back, and I hope he can get something going again in his career. He deserves to get paid. He was face of the franchise for years for the Kings, and then he got the most unfortunate injury of his career when he was paired with the best teammate he's ever had, Anthony Davis. They were a really scary team back then, but I don't think he's going to be making that kind of a difference on the Wizards. So moving on to the 20th team. Oh, and by the way, they're 24-40, which is really terrible for the Wizards. So I'm sorry, Bradley Beal. I hope you get out soon, buddy. Next, I'll go for the Suns. I just think there's too many variables on this team. I don't think really we're gonna see Devin Booker and their number one overall pick, DeAndre Ayton. Sorry, I could not remember his name. DeAndre Ayton really put together anything super, super great in the postseason. And the next, I'm going to go for the Spurs. It's the Spurs. They've got the best coach in the NBA, pretty much bar none. No, period, bar none. Greg Popovich is not rivaled. There's a couple coaches up there that kind of do, things similar to him, affect your team in a similar way. People like not Danny Ainge. I can't remember his name right now. Brad Stevens. They really come to mind. And then, like Quinn Snyder is also a really, really great coach. But I don't think there's too many. And Nick Nurse, too. He's next level. He's really next level. And if I come across, I'll realize there's some good coaches still on this list. But anyway, I just don't think the Spurs are going to be able to do it. LaMarcus Aldridge had surgery. He's not playing. I don't think DeMar DeRozan's a really good fit at all in that system. His numbers are way down. There's just not enough there. I don't believe in the Derek White, DeJounte Murray point guard wombo combo they've got going on there. I just don't think that's going to be, enough for them. Anyway, I'm going to move on to the Magic, another team that I really just don't think has too much going for them. They lost Jonathan Isaac, who is a real defensive player of the year candidate for them this year, in my opinion. But he's not in the mix. I don't think Mo Bamba, despite his many hit songs, is really going to be too big of a contributor this year. And then they've got the probably weakest all-star we've seen in a couple of years. Nikola Vucevic are also under contract, and they've just got various kind of mid guards out there. In the rotation, just like not great. Anyway, we're gonna move on to the Kings, another team that I think this team I've got a lot more hope for than the Magic, for example. This team is going to be good next year, in my opinion. They're going to be a playoff team next year. Their young guys are really getting there. De'Aaron Fox, say what you want about Marvin Bagley. It's really about De'Aaron Fox. He's the big guy. Marvin Bagley, we'll see what goes on with him. He's been good, but really the story is Fox, in my opinion. So we're just going to need to see him really progress into the type of player that can carry a team like that to the playoffs before I really think the Kings are going to be anything to think about for longer than a minute. Anyway, we'll move on to the Pelicans. The Pelicans, they could make the playoffs. I could definitely see the cheese happen, and they make the playoffs, and they're not going to beat anybody in the first round. That's pretty much for certain. They would, maybe get swept by the Lakers, who are probably going to get the 1 seed. I think that's pretty much locked down. They're not doing anything. Zion Williamson's amazing. Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram, they're also studs. But, you got Josh Hart on your team. He's just going to miss every corner three. So, I don't think that's conducive to winning. Anyway, moving on to the Grizzlies, which are that team. That team is really good. This team, the Grizzlies, they're a 32-33 record, unfortunately. Just kind of sad. They lost a lot of games after the All-Star break, if I'm not mistaken, because they came out pretty dang hot. Ja Morant is transcendent. He's going to be probably the best point guard in the league at some point, in my opinion. He's going to be competing for, not competing for, but definitely he'll be in the MVP mix at various points in his career. I think him, Jaren Jackson Jr., who's probably one of the most complimentary stars you could get for someone like Ja Morant, someone who's really going to protect the rim, really, really going to be good in transition offense. He can shoot the ball. He doesn't shoot a super high volume, but he does really, really, he's going to get to the rim, especially in a high-paced scenario with Ja Morant. And, they've got other pieces here and there, like Brandon Clark. I think he's really good. And I think they have Jonas Valanciunas on that team, if I'm not mistaken. And he's also, he's like, in my opinion, like a Clint Capella level center. He's pretty dang good. He's just gonna check all the boxes you need for that position. So maybe they're gonna be a team that I wish I would have put higher. Grizzlies are definitely one to look out for. So we're starting to get into the realm of teams that are gonna get into the playoffs and gonna be potential first round threats, because I really do think the NBA is pretty deep this year. Next we're going to go into the Trailblazers. They, unfortunately, are not going to have Trevor Ariza for the playoffs, and he was going to be really, really critical to those rotations, in my opinion. I don't think he was playing a ton of minutes in the regular season, which everyone pretty much anticipates. It's kind of like Andre Iguodala in his, years on the Warriors. He wouldn't really play a super ton, and then as the playoffs come around, you shrink the rotation down to like 7-8 guys, because you really don't want non-starter level players eating up playoff basketball minutes. Just not really wise or conducive to winning. And the Trailblazers are going to be in kind of a weird position. I don't know if Yusuf Nurkic is going to come back and be really, really great. Again, I refer back to DeMarcus Cousins, could be good, could be not great, but I don't know. And Carmelo Anthony's also a question mark. And I'd love to see Carmelo Anthony in the playoffs. That's something that I would definitely tune in for. And you always have to tune in for any Dollar Dame game. So I think they'll probably make the playoffs. I think they're a really, really strong team. Now that I really think about it, they got off to a really, really rough start in the beginning. They might be able to close the distance. Just Damian Lillard he can just turn it up to 11 too hard for most teams to really be able to compete with. 13, slightly above the Trailblazers. I really think this could go either way. And you guys are probably wondering why I didn't mention this team earlier. The Pacers. I think the Pacers are actually a lot better than they're given credit for. The defense is amazing. Domantas Sabonis, that's pretty good this year. Really, really casual, like 13 rebounds. Like I said, I didn't really pull up any stats. This is just stuff that I'm just ranting pretty much out of my head. Obviously, I did a little bit of pre-planning, but Victor Oladipo for the Pacers, I think, is really going to be serious question marks are going to come up with like how good he can be in the playoffs. We saw it in 2018 against the Cavs in that one series. They took them to 7. When they would eventually, that same Cavs team would eventually go to the finals. LeBron James just absolutely carrying everything on his back. That was an amazing series. And I was so sad Victor Oladipo got hurt. He's one of my favorite players. I really wish him the best. So I'm thinking, yeah, he can pretty much do it. And then this is also going to be one. This one I think is got to be my biggest potential embarrassment when we're all said and done, because I was one of the people who didn't underestimate this team at the beginning of the season. I felt like there was a chance for them to make the playoffs. ESPN gave them like a 0.02% chance of making the playoffs. And by now, if you're an NBA fan, I'm talking about the Thunder. I don't think the Thunder are really going to be too strong in the postseason, due to the simple fact that their rotation really it's seemingly deep. But once you go past the starting 5 of Chris Paul, they're not even the starting 5. They don't even start this lineup. This is their best lineup. Once you go past Chris Paul, Dennis Schroeder, Danilo Gallinari, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and Steven Adams, it's really, you're going to start getting into the question mark players. Now, there's some good, they've got good forwards and stuff that can play in place of Steven Adams. But when you start putting in players like Dort in for your 2-3 player, that's not good. You're going to be really playing 4v5 on the defensive end, and you can't really win too many games in playoff basketball. But, that being said, Chris Paul will probably literally do everything in the playoffs, which, that's pretty sink or swim, feast or famine. And they could easily make it past the first or the second round. This is definitely the scariest team that I have down here, not in my contenders. And obviously there's teams that I think are better than them, but this team is just a lot of question marks. It's their first year together. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, I think, is going to be. He was in my opinion, probably top 3 or 4 player in that draft. And I don't even remember what year he got drafted, but the Clippers had him last year, and he was amazing in his rookie year. Really, really probably the most underrated rookie. And he's been amazing this year. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, don't forget that guy's name. He's got a long one, but it's worth remembering. Anyway, that'll move us on to the 76ers. There's just been too many question marks with this. This was supposedly such a super team. They're so loaded, right? They added Al Horford. They got Richardson, the shooting guard. He's great. He's good, right? He's okay. He didn't make the playoffs in the Heat last year, but come on, Josh Richardson, check him out. And they've got Ben Simmons, the supposed transcendent talent. I really believe in Ben Simmons. But I don't really know if he fits at all with Joel Embiid, which is a serious problem. And what's crazy? Last year they had this amazing player on their team that just hit so many threes. Whenever the 76ers really had a messed up, nasty-looking court where Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid are just clogging the paint, and there's 3 guys down there because they're not sure what Joel Embiid's going to do or what Ben Simmons is going to do, which one of those guys is going to try to dunk it. And then they just kick it out to JJ Redick, and JJ Redick just solves the problem and makes their team not a colossal disaster. But now they can kick it out to Tobias Harris and Al Horford. He can hit threes in the playoffs. I believe in that. 76ers, they are really a team built for the playoffs, so the shallower rotation probably will help them. Furkan Korkmaz, he could hit a bunch of threes. They could get out of the first round, second round. They could potentially even make the finals. The East is weak, is really what I'm trying to say. There's no clear cut favorite in the East, and we'll get to the Bucks, but I don't think that there is clear cut favorite as everyone would lead you to believe. That is another statement that might just go down to Hami because they might just stomp through the playoffs and win a championship. Not going to lie. Giannis is kind of insane, but we'll have to see how that defense holds up. And like I said, we'll get to them. Next, I have the Mavericks at 10. I think the Mavericks are an insanely good team. I think Luka Doncic is a transcendent player. I think if you voted for him in MVP this year, I think he would be pretty much justified. They made the playoffs. They're gonna make the playoffs. They might make the second round. Kristaps Porzingis, he's coming on strong. Not gonna lie. The team is really, really, really good. I believe they have the best offense in the league. They did at some point in the year, and that's in no small part to Luka Doncic literally just controlling every single part of the game on the offensive end of the floor. He has too much gravity. He has too much postability, too many mismatches on him. He's too good in transition. He's too smooth with the handles. He's just a problem. He's really, in my opinion, the first absolute superstar player we're going to encounter on this list, except for the Nets, the Karis LeVert show. Oh, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, they're superstars for sure. And there's some superstars, maybe I'm not remembering this, but Chris Paul's he's in there, but I don't think he's a superstar anymore. Anyway, and Zion Williamson, probably superstar already. Not gonna lie, but he's still a baby, so we don't count him. But that's it. That's all I really have to say about the Mavs. I really think they're kind of a scary team just because of Luka Doncic is just he's brain melting. If you've never seen Luka Doncic score 11 straight points versus the Rockets in, I believe, the fourth quarter of just a random regular season game in his rookie year, that's when I became a believer. He just absolutely turned what looked like a hopeless game into 11 unanswered straight points. And I just think, if that guy can do that, then if he can just get that hot, he just doesn't seem afraid of the moment. We won EuroLeague championships, EuroLeague MVP. This guy is going to win MVP in the NBA at some point in his career. 40 and 27 Mavs. That's pretty dang good. It's a good record. Next, we're going to move on to the Jazz. There's some question marks there regarding the whole sickness issue that Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell were getting at each other about apparently. But they say it's resolved. We're just going to hope it's resolved. That team is amazing if it's resolved. Bogdanovich was such a sleeper pickup. He just drills threes and makes mismatches everywhere. Good old Joe Jingles. He's a really good player. I think he's a playoff player in my opinion. I don't know. Draymond Green has talked about this theory before. There's players that are built for the regular season, players that are built for the postseason. Joe Ingles is built for the postseason, in my opinion. He can hit threes. He can guard up on people when he needs to. Not really, actually. I'm not going to lie. Joe Ingles kind of has no defense, but at least he looks like he's trying in the playoffs. And Quinn Snyder's defense helps him out a lot. Plus, you don't have to play that good defense when you got the old Stifle Tower just chilling in the paint for you most of the time. Donovan Mitchell, he's kind of, my buddies and I, we always joke about, he's kind of the Utah Dwayne Wade. He's kind of the modern day Dwayne Wade, in my opinion. He kind of does a lot of the same stuff Dwayne Wade does. That's pretty good. That's good. It's kind of, he's starting to really push on that cusp of superstar. And in my opinion, playoffs are where superstars are made or broken. So maybe I was giving too much credit to Luka Doncic earlier. He still really has to prove that he can do that in the playoffs. And that's going to be something I want to hold people to, kind of everyone to the same standard. So until you prove it to me in the playoffs, I'm not going to buy it. But, Luka Doncic, I am actually just a little bit hyped on just because, I don't know, anecdotal evidence. Sometimes you get a feeling with a guy. And here I am talking about Luka Doncic when I'm really done talking about the Jazz. Anyway, I think the Jazz are kind of forgettable on this list, to be honest. Anyway, now we're going to start getting into teams that if they won the championship, people would, they would really freak out because these are really not favorites, but they would kind of, there's a path for them, in my opinion. There's a path for just about, right now, I think there's a path for the Heat to win an NBA championship this year. That's going to be the probably most pushed, forced one. But it's okay. I think it's the lowest chance because I don't know if the Heat necessarily match up super well with a lot of teams in the East. I think they match up well with a lot of teams in the East. I think, they might be a threat for, the 76ers certainly do not want to see them. I don't think anyone in the East wants to see the Heat, actually, particularly. Jimmy Butler he's insane. They have multiple just absolute archers in the back line with Duncan Robinson and Tyler Hero. They're just going to be, spraying threes. Tyler Hero is somebody who's not afraid of the moment. He'll hit a John Paxson, Steve Kerr 3. I totally don't doubt that. He's just built. Some players are just built like that. And he is. Jimmy Butler is a player that will hit, MJ level shots, if we're being honest. Jimmy Butler's that dude. He is really amazing. And it's so sad? The 76ers would have likely gone on to the NBA Finals if they were able to beat Kawhi Leonard, because Jimmy Butler hit an amazing clutch shot at the end of the game. And Kawhi Leonard rips down the court and chucks up the biggest prayer in NBA Game 7 playoff history. And someone far, far above just decided on the third bounce, let it just roll in and just absolutely break Philadelphia's heart and everyone involved. It was forever changed. I remember sitting there on that buzzer beater, just watching it. I remember I was watching the game and I literally heard it hit twice, and I was like, "Wow, that's funny. Let's go overtime. This is so hype." And I heard it hit the third time, and I was like, "What?" And then the moment between the raging applause and the absolute silence of the crowd and everyone in the room that I was watching it with felt like an absolute eternity. But when it went off, it was just like one of the most mind-melting NBA highs I've ever felt in my entire life. If you haven't watched that whole series, you need to. If you haven't watched that particular game, you really, really need to. But anyway, I'm trying to just talk about Jimmy Butler. He's a really, really great player. I don't know. I don't want to throw just a stupid thing like top 10 player. He's an elite level player. We can just leave it there. He's going to really lock anybody in the guard slot up. And, that's going to be good for the East. A lot of the power in the East is in the guard slots. So we will really see how that whole thing plays out. Next, I have the Nuggets. I don't think the Nuggets are really a true threat for an NBA championship this year. But, I've seen some pictures of the Slim Reaper Nikola Jokic, and I don't really know how I feel about that. It's kind of like seeing the pictures of the Slim Reaper James Harden. It's like, are you guys gonna try to are you just trying to cut and then bulk, or what's the plan here? I guess they didn't really know when it was getting back up. They don't really know what's going on, so I don't even know if that Slim Reaper Nikola Jokic thing is real, to be honest. But I don't think that team is super, super popping off the page. I even think the Heat are a better team than them. I think Nikola Jokic is an amazing player, probably the best player at the center position at this point in the NBA. So, that enough at the baseline is enough to let them be my number 7 team. They had a really amazing record this year, really up there fighting for the top of the East. They did last year too, and they've got playoff experience. Jamal Murray. Jamal Murray, he's really good, but is he really an elite level player? I'm not ready to put him in that category yet. because I think if he was an elite level player, you'd have a lot more mismatches in the guard slot. And I get that the guards spots are a little bit messed up for the Nuggets because of Nikola Jokic really running the point guard position from the center position. So you just kind of have two shooting guards, and kind of you ruined Gary Harris that way, and now he's trash. Not even gonna. I won't even lie there. Oh, they do have Kevin Porter Jr. and he is really, really interesting. Sorry, Michael Porter Jr. Sorry, wrong. I love Kevin Porter Jr. too. Don't get it twisted. On the Cavs, he's awesome. I was not even gonna lie. I won't even lie to you. When the draft last year happened, I was ready to take Kevin Porter Jr. I was ready to take him in the top 5. That was insane. Obviously, that's wrong, but I was really, really itching to pull the trigger on him in the top 15 at least. I was like, why is this guy sitting on the board? And he wasn't even on anybody's board. I don't know why. I knew it. I knew he's good. Don't sleep on him. Michael Porter Jr. also really, really, good. And we'll see how the injuries things work out. But if he's ever really able to put together a couple seasons of being healthy, he's gonna be a monster. He just has all the skills. He has everything you need in the modern day for a 3. He really, really will excel if he can get his whole game together. And I wish that he would just get more minutes. That's a little bit of a coaching thing. But I just give him more minutes. Because, what if that's the next Kevin Durant that you're just benching right now for whatever, pathetic 3 you're rolling out there instead? Is Paul Millsap playing his minutes? Paul Millsap's pretty dang good, but do you really want to have him on your bench because you want to play, Twilight Paul Millsap? I don't know. Get it together, guys. I believe in you. Next, I've got the Raptors. I'm low on the Raptors. I'm not going to lie. They don't have a guy. In my opinion, Pascal Siakam is their guy. No doubt about it. He's the best player on the team. Not even close. Kyle Lowry's nowhere near what Pascal Siakam is at this point. I think Pascal Siakam's really also, low-key MVP talks. Most improved player again. He made another giant leap. He is seriously the backbone of this Raptors team, and everything's going to really ride on him. This team could win another championship this year, in my opinion. I don't think it's likely. I think you'd have to pretty much see win-win catastrophic injury type of situation like we saw last year with Golden State. But this is, this team absolutely is threatening for the finals. They will not be scared off by the likes of the Bucks, the number 1 Bucks. They don't scare them at all, in my opinion. I think that they want to play the Bucks. Nick Nurse is an absolute defensive genius. There's no ifs, ands, or buts there. And he did have his best chess piece taken away from him in Kawhi Leonard, who was just the absolute player Nick Nurse dreamt about every single night and prayed to God that he could have. And God answered him. He said, "Nick Nurse, I give you 1 year to be the head coach and have Kawhi Leonard. Take it or leave it." And Nick Nurse took it. And that's why Nick Nurse, in my opinion, should always be a legend for just one and doneing it. Nick Nurse is right now 1-0 in his championships. He's 1 year with championships, 0 years without championships. So don't expect to see him just kind of quit. He's going to be playing his cards right because, hey, got him there last year. He was just in the right place at the right time. Got a free ring pretty much. Not a free ring at all because they did have one of the most legendary series. Like I said, mentioned a little earlier against the 76ers. Kawhi Leonard, obviously, he just stole that whole series. Next up, I'm going to talk about the Celtics. This is another team that I really think could win it all. You've got Jason Tatum, an ascending monster. He could win an MVP in the next couple years easily. I'm throwing in these MVPs. There's not enough MVPs to go around, to be honest. But isn't that kind of always how it goes? LeBron could have a couple. XYZ could have a couple. Harden could have a couple. KD could have a couple. Kobe could have a few more. Shaq could have one more. It is what it is. There really aren't enough MVPs to go around. Kemba Walker is also really, really, really good. He's going to be amazing in the playoffs. This will be the first year we can see him in the NBA playoffs, but I believe in Kemba Walker thoroughly in the playoffs because he was able to perform on an elite level in the NCAA tournament. I know that was kind of a long time ago, but in my opinion, you're either built like that or you aren't built like that. And Kemba Walker, in my opinion, is he's definitely built like that. And I don't even need to mention Jaylen Brown here. He's an ascending talent. He's a really, really great player. Could be a great player in the future. I would like to see him on a different team, to be honest, because I think he could be the number one guy, and I don't think in the current climate of Boston he's really ever going to get the chance to be all he could be. I think it's like a James Harden scenario. We're on the Thunder a few years ago. They just had too much, and no one could really shine too bright, and then obviously they all split up. So look out for something like that. Next up, I've got the Rockets. And they're my number 4 team. I want to put them higher because on paper they should just be so good. MVP Russell Westbrook, MVP James Harden. James Harden is the best player in the NBA. No. James Harden is the best player. Is the best scorer we've seen in 250 years. James Harden is the best scorer of all time. No, XYZ. I don't buy it. I'm sorry. James Harden is a really great player. Amazing player. He's not the best scorer of all time. He's probably not even the best scorer in the NBA, if we're going to be honest. Because there's just more efficient ways to do it in the postseason. Say what you want about it. In efficiency is specifically like, what you get per shot attempt. Well, most of the data that the Rockets are crunching or whatever, their stat junkies are doing. Daryl Morey is just calculating things. Mike D'Antoni is just hearing statistics. I'm sure he just doesn't even. He's just like, dude. I'm just playing pace. Still, in 2020. Anyway, James Harden, Russell Westbrook. This is not gonna work in the playoffs. I'm sorry. You just don't get as many free throws in the playoffs. James Harden, they're just not gonna call ticky-tack fouls on LeBron James. They're not gonna call a ticky-tack foul on Kawhi Leonard. He's just gonna strip you, and you're gonna be flopping all over the place. It's not gonna work. You got to change the mentality. You got to get after them before they get to you. You can't be waiting on you can't have the refs even influence your game in the playoffs. They don't want to blow the whistle. They're trying to swallow it as hard as they can. And that's why I think James Harden, as a number one guy, is not going to be able to lead your team to the promised land. But, I put them this high because on paper they really are a disgusting team. Robert Covington is absolutely the perfect pickup. He's like the Trevor Ariza of their dreams. He fills in all the gas they needed. The Chris Paul trade was ill-advised, in my opinion. I would actually have them higher if Chris Paul was still on the team right now. Yeah, way higher. I would. In my opinion, they would be above this next team in my actual power rankings of how good the teams are. Now, I'm not saying they've got a really good shot to win the championship at all because they have to go through LA. Unfortunately, every team in the West has to go through LA. And the only way you're getting through LA is if LA has to duke itself out in the second round, and then one of the LA teams gets injured. So I just don't see the Rockets doing that. Next up, I've got the Bucks. I don't have the Bucks in my top 2, and that pretty much leaves just something we'll talk about here in a second. But Giannis has yet to really, really super prove it to me in the playoffs that he can do it. I think it would be a damn shame if Giannis got an MVP this year, pretty much for doing the exact same thing he did last year, except a ton harder. And all the teams in the NBA were just kind of like, okay, you can do this in the regular season. It's real cute. It's just like what the Rockets do. It's real cute in the regular season that you guys just allow open threes. But every other team is not giving up any open shots in the playoffs. But the Bucks have a very weird, specific defense that locks the paint down like it's 1970. We're just gonna move on from that and pretend like we don't see that glaring defensive weakness and pretend like they're the clear title favorites. They're not. In my opinion, it's either going to be the LA Lakers or the LA Clippers. I mean, these two teams are clearly the most loaded. And I don't think there's a real number one or number two. But I will actually give the slight edge to the Clippers. I think they're a more complete team. They're deeper, which doesn't matter as much in the playoffs. Shallow rotation actually favors the Lakers. They did lose Avery Bradley. They're going to sign J.R. Smith. As a Lakers fan, I don't really know how I feel about J.R. Smith, but I think I'm in because J.R. Smith is one of those players that has his specific shots that he knows to take. And as long as he's paying attention to the score, I don't think he's a negative to your team at all. I think he still plays, acceptable defense. He's had a long time to get rest and injured. I assume he's still training hard, or the Lakers wouldn't even be considering signing him. Maybe Clutch Sports has got the secret sauce on how to get signed when you're out of shape, but I don't think so. J.R. Smith could be good. I'm down to get J.R. Smith on the team. He could be kind of a Sean Livingston type role player where he doesn't really do much except for take his shots. Sean Livingston never really super shot it. J.R. Smith does. He handled a little bit more. I'm just trying to say kind of like your ninth guy if you have an eighth guy rotation. And maybe J.R. Smith gets moved up in the rotation higher and higher. Maybe he plays good. I mean, I think J.R. Smith is a player that is worthy of some minutes in the NBA for sure. But, like I said, I think the Clippers are your number one team. You're pretty much, I'm just going to say clear-cut number one team. I think they've got the championship pretty much in their palm right now. It's going to be coming down to Paul George and if he can really perform in the playoffs. They've just have so much ammo with Lou Williams, who's one of the most underrated players in the NBA. I mean, everybody says he's one of the most underrated players. It's like the Damian Lillard paradox. It's like, how can he be the most underrated player in the NBA if everybody calls him that? The answer is that he can't be, but he's a really good point guard. You should respect him. As good and as loaded as the Lakers are, this is their absolute first year together. Frank Vogel, head coach. Unfortunately, they don't have, here's another coach that could be the best coach in the NBA, Doc Rivers. In fact, I think he might be the best coach in the NBA. Pop seems actually a little bit washed. Brad Stevens, like I said, prove it. Doc Rivers, championship pedigree. He was an amazing player, too. That just, I think that, he's a good player. Not an amazing player. He's a good player. He's a really good coach. I've got Tyronn Lue on their bench to show them the clipboard of drawing the play where it says LeBron take it to the hole. That's not a real advantage, by the way. Ty Lue, I don't really think Ty Lue is a super head coach. Frank Vogels is all right. He's got to prove himself here. The shallow rotation for the Lakers, like I said, that does favor them in the short run, or in the long run. Basically, it'll hurt them in the beginning. They've got a nice lead actually in games on the first place in the West. I think LeBron James is your MVP this year. I don't think there's too much question about that. He's just transformed his game. He absolutely just is knocking down very deep threes on a regular basis now. He doesn't force crazy shots that he can't make as much anymore. He still forces up a couple that are just like, what? But then sometimes you watch him and you're like, what? That actually went in. Because he's LeBron James and the ball is magnetized to the bottom of the hoop. He's LeBron James. And then you can't talk about the Lakers without mentioning Anthony Davis. The best four in the league. That's a mismatch on every single night. Best 4-5 in the league, obviously. I mean, we don't call him a 5 because he doesn't like to be called a 5, and we care about Anthony's feelings. Because we really, 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 really want him to re-sign. Desperately want him to re-sign. Please, Anthony. We love you. He's amazing. He's the best big man in the entire league. And he's playoff proven too. I mean, he swept He swept Damian Lillard in the first round, if I'm not mistaken. And then he got swept by the Warriors, but it was the damn Warriors. I mean, I don't know what you wanted. What did you want from him? You want him to take on the unbeatable evil Warriors? It's not happening. What a refreshing year. It's like the NBA decided before the year started. They're like, nope, no Warriors in the NBA finals or in the playoffs. We're not restarting it for you guys. You guys aren't gonna. No Steph, no Clay. We don't want it. No, stay away. Or no. They actually ruined their schedule too this year. They had a lot of games on national TV because they're the Warriors and they were the defending champs, and a lot of those games were tough to watch. They also scheduled a lot of Nets games this year. Another kind of mistake, in my opinion, for the national TV games. But that's just my personal power rankings. Again, I'm just going to run through it real quick. 1 Clippers, 2 Lakers, 3 Bucks, 4 Rockets, 5 Celtics, 6 Raptors, 7 Nuggets, 8 Heat, 9 Jazz, 10 Mavericks, 11 76ers, 12 Thunder, 13 Pacers, 14 Trailblazers, 15 Grizzlies, 16 Pelicans, 17 Kings, 18 Magic, 19 Spurs, 20 Suns, 21 Wizards, and 22 the very, very unfortunate. We pray for the Nets fans, who probably, I think they might actually win 0 games in the NBA restart. I would be shocked if they win 1. It's going to be competitive. Every game is going to be worth watching. So if you're not excited for the NBA to come back July 30th, which I thought it was coming back on June 30th, but I realize now that they're doing training camp. I was just kind of sad to know that it wasn't coming back. June 30th, that's when they decided that's when they agreed on a deal. I'm really glad they came with whatever deal they needed. I'm willing to take whatever kind of NBA they're going to give us. I just really, really am glad that Adam Silver prevented this year from being wasted, and I'm sure there was a lot of heavy lobbying from LeBron James because this definitely affects his legacy, whether or not he can pick up a championship here. In my opinion, LeBron's trying to pick up 2 more championships to try to compete with MJ's legacy. I really think he could get there because he does have probably in my opinion, a more impressive finals. No finals is more impressive than what LeBron James was able to do in 2016 that MJ has. So he has kind of the best story. And if he can get, 6 championships, that's serious. That's serious stuff. So I'm really, really excited to see how this plays out. Not only for the story of the 2020 season, which has been amazing so far, 2019-2020 season, which has just been amazing so far. So many memorable games, so many memorable storylines. I'm excited to see how the rest of those will play out, but I'm also excited because this has huge, really I'm talking huge, because we're talking how we're going to look back in 200 years, the best basketball player that ever played could be changed. This could affect that legacy. So the overall story of basketball is really about to have a very, very crucial point in the next month, 2 months, 3 months, however long this is actually going to take. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm really, really excited to see how everything's going to turn out. And I'm sure I will be talking about more and more things as I think that they're worth talking about. Anyway, my name has been Jackson Hester. This has been Vindication Sports. And I will see you guys next time.